I hit the go live button. I don't know. It says I'm live. Hello everyone to a Hardware Unboxed live stream. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this is working. Here we are to build a new gaming PC on the channel. First time I've been doing a live stream just by myself for quite some time. So yeah, looking forward to sort of the new live stream setup here at the studio that I have and all the parts that we're going to be putting into my new gaming PC. Very excited for this one. So yeah, thanks everyone for, there's been a bit of chat before the stream. Really, enjoyed looking at all that stuff and seeing what people are up to. And yeah, let's get PC building, I guess. So first of all, we do have as well the old top-down camera. So you will be able to eventually see, building parts and stuff. So I've got that set up. Main camera, lots of stuff going on. Yeah, to be building a new gaming PC for me. So first of all, why do I need a new gaming PC? Well, everyone needs a new gaming PC, of course, with the latest stuff. That's how the hardware cycle works, I guess. But no, really, it's because I've recently repurposed my actual gaming PC into a test system. I needed a second one to do some monitor-related testing. Currently, we're seeing a few differences between monitors with AMD GPUs and NVIDIA GPUs, so I needed a second system. Sort of thought, where am I going to get this from? Repurposed the old gaming PC, which means it's time for a new PC, something that was more powerful than what I was using previously. I think I had like a 12400F RTX 3090, which I know is still a powerful GPU, but not quite as powerful as the old RTX 4090 here. So yeah, very, very keen to get a brand new PC to be used just for gaming. So if you're not aware, my current setup has sort of a workstation that I use with an AMD Threadripper CPU inside, and then I've got a gaming PC that's separate. So I've already seen some questions in the chat from earlier that were sort of asking, we're using a 7800 X3D for this, not the 7950 X3D. That is because it's a gaming build, don't really need the extra cores of the 7950, so 7800 X3D is where it's at. So yeah, looks like it's working. Jared's asking, can I have a free PC? I think did you just get one from Steve the other day? That would have been nice for you. So yeah, why do you guys not acknowledge the reasons my 4060 Ti is great for 1080p 500 entry-level GPU, says Jensen from NVIDIA. Yeah, nice to see you, Jensen, in the chat there. Well, you can check our reviews for why maybe that's not the best GPU. So let's run through the parts that we're using at the start of this build before we get into actually doing anything. So first of all, CPU, talked a little bit about this. The AMD Ryzen 7 7800 X3D, $450 at the moment on Newegg. You can see actually that this is an AMD sample that they've sent, so haven't bought this or anything. Actually, I'll use the top-down camera. It says there, AMD sample, not for resale, so AMD has provided this CPU for this build. But yeah, this is sort of the flagship top-of-the-line CPU that you can use for gaming at the moment. The 13900K would also have been an option. Steve, I think, built a 13900K system also with the 4090 for Balin on the channel a couple of months ago. Maybe it was last year. So if you're interested in seeing that sort of build, that is on the channel. Balin's PC is probably better than mine at the moment. But once we get this 7800 X3D going, then yeah, I think my PC will be pretty competitive with his. So yeah, great little CPU there. Obviously 8 cores, Vcache, all that sort of thing. So let's put that to the side for the moment. The other big boy component that we're using here, this is a pretty crazy GPU, the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4090. And in this version, we of course got the Asus ROG Strix Gaming OC model. Now you might be asking, why this specific GPU? Why on earth are you using one of the most expensive RTX 4090 models? And the real reason is because I was choosing all the parts for this build. One of the first times we sort of, go in, handpick all the parts that I wanted to use, except for the case. That's a bit of a mystery. We'll talk about that later. And I thought, you know what, if I'm choosing a 4090 for myself, I will choose one of the beefiest models that you can get, which is the Asus ROG Strix variant. Now this is just the air-cooled version. They've also got a liquid-cooled version, which is even more expensive than this model. But for me, didn't really want the liquid-cooled. I just thought I'll go with the air-cooled model, just a bit simpler for the build, easier to manage, that sort of thing. This model costs $2,000 on Newegg, $2,000 US. So obviously the 4090's MSRP is $1,600. $2,000. So it's definitely a huge, super beefy system. So yeah, as I said, this is the highest end model. So 3.5 slot design, so it's going to use up a lot of the slots that we've got available to us. And yeah, really keen on checking that out. I don't think I've ever seen a Strix model in person yet. I know Steve's got a few of them. Getting a few chats here as well. So before diving into the next couple of things, yeah, Gamers Nexus mod mat. Gamers Nexus, thanks for sending out this mod mat. I think it's great for building. I've actually normally got it over there in my sort of test area that I use for building all the time. So there's already got a bit of wear and tear on this, as you can see, because I have genuinely been using it for building stuff and, you know, just doing some component swaps and things. So really love the mod mat. Thought I'd use it for the build. Just gives me that bit of extra protection, especially with this desk that, as you can see on the sides here, it is painted white. So there's always that risk that you're going to get a bit of white paint rubbing off onto the case when moving around and things. The mod mat pretty much solves that. So I love using the mod mat. And yeah, water block, not using a water block for this build. We are just using an all-in-one liquid cooler. In fact, we've got, yeah, the Asus Ryujin 3 360. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, I'll attempt a water cooling build at some point in the future. I've actually never built custom liquid cooling, I think, ever. So yeah, we'll get to that in a future build. But for now, just using these components. So let's continue with the components for the build. We got this bad boy here from MSI, the Meg X670E Ace, which is one of the highest end X670E motherboards on the market. Again, I chose this for a couple of reasons. This one wasn't chosen just because it's the most expensive motherboard that you can get, because it's not the most expensive motherboard. There's an Asus Crosshair model, I believe, which is more expensive than this, and I think there's the Godlike as well from MSI, which is more expensive. But anyway, the reason why I'm using this specific board and not anything lower end is because it has 10 gigabit LAN. You might be thinking, okay, why do you need a motherboard with 10 gig LAN for a gaming build? And that's because my gaming PC is not just a gaming PC, it's also used as a game server, so to speak. So my system at the moment, I think it's 12, it could be 16 terabytes of SSDs in it. And the reason for that is it keeps all the games that I've got installed so I can quickly test them, quickly transfer them to other systems, or use them for testing without having to download the game. So if I need to just quickly evaluate something in a game, like maybe there's been an update, a couple of quality settings need to be looked at, the game server has all the games on it, and that's just my game PC build. And in my office area, I've got 10 gig networking. So 10 gig networking is really convenient for just transferring things like games from one system to another, or streaming games directly from the PC to another PC. So having 10 gig networking is essential. And with motherboards these days, we've sort of got the option of using boards that have already got 10 gig networking built in, like this board, or using an add-in card. I've been using Asus add-in cards for a while. They've been fine, but this board has both, I think it's got 10 gig and 2.5 gig, no, just one 10 gig LAN port. So yeah, that's perfect for my needs, really. As well as that, it's got, if we look at the back of the box, it has also got 4 M.2 slots. One of them is PCI 5.0, the rest are PCI 4.0. And again, that's for when I'm slotting in, 16 terabytes of SSDs to store games on. This motherboard will be able to support all of that. Other features, I think it's got 22-phase power design, 8-layer PCB, again, PCI 5.0 for all of the PCIe slots in it. And yeah, I think it comes with I'm not sure if it's got the expander card, but I know some versions do also come with this PCIe M.2 expander card for more M.2 access. Once we open up, we'll have a look, see whether that's come in the box. So yeah, the Ace. There are only a few X670 models that have 10 gig LAN. They're all obviously the premium, super expensive boards. The MSI model was sort of the one that made the most sense. This is currently a $700 board. So, if you're building a 7800X 3D build, you don't necessarily need a motherboard that costs $700. You could easily slot this into B650 or something like that, much more affordable. But I thought, my sort of system's a dual use sort of thing. So we'll pair it with that, more expensive board. Will you revisit the Radeon 7? Probably a question for Steve. I know that card became very popular for mining, especially during the mining boom. 16 gig of VRAM, I believe, had quite a lot of potential there. So yeah, I'm sure at some point we'll get to revisiting that card when it makes the most sense. It wasn't super popular though at the time, so yeah, we'll see about that. All right, next component, let's get to it. G.Skill has provided 32 gigabytes of their Trident Z5 Neo RGB memory. So this is DDR5 6000 CL30 stuff, sort of the sweet spot supposedly for AMD CPU. So we'll see whether that works. 32 gig kit, pretty standard. Not really a super fan of RGB or anything, but this is a nice solid sort of use case. It's actually quite affordable at the moment on Newegg. I think only $115 US for this kit. So 32 gig seems to be around the sweet spot for gaming. I guess I probably could have put in 64 gig, but I thought 32 seems all right for now. AMD Expo, if that makes a difference, is also part of that. Let's get now to the cooler, which we'll be putting in. So this is the Asus ROG Ryujin 3 360mm ARGB CPU cooler. So this is a big, beefy cooler, and I chose this one because of the screen. I thought, you know what, I'll put some hardware unboxed text on the LCD screen that comes with this particular model. So it's a 3.5-inch LCD there. It's on, slots directly onto the board. I'll put a hardware unbox logo on there. That's really the only reason that I've got this. RGB for the fans as well. Again, not a huge fan of RGB. It's not necessary for my builds, but it's sort of a nice bonus to have. And of course, this provides plenty of cooling power for the 7800X3D and any CPUs that I may be upgrading to in the future. Obviously, we've got a motherboard that's going to support future CPUs. We've got a cooler that's definitely going to support future CPUs as well. So yeah, this I think is $350 on Newegg. So again, it's one of the higher end 360mm liquid coolers that you can get. But again, it's sort of an overkill, crazy build. So when you've got that capability, it sort of makes sense to use the most expensive parts, I guess. So yeah, you can see all the features here. 8th gen Acertec pump, 3.5-inch LCD, as I said. It's got the fans already included. We'll see how easy that is to install a bit later. Balin, who's our video editor, is currently manning the Hub Clips channel in the chat, and he's saying RGB can't be ignored. He's definitely a big RGB fan. If you saw his live stream build, he was very keen on getting all the RGB components in. My PC typically sits under my desk, so I'm not really looking at the RGB all that much. Things for me, I think someone's saying in the chat, OLED, exactly, OLED is mandatory. Definitely OLED is mandatory. I'll be slotting this in with my Alienware AW3423DW that I've been using for a while now. If you've seen our Monitors Unboxed channel, there's a 1-year update of me using that monitor. I probably would have upgraded it to the DWF model, maybe the OLED G8 from Samsung, instead of using that particular model, but it's they're basically the same. It's been working fine for me. So yeah, that sort of will be part of this. Not that you'll see that's over there on the other side of the camera. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you are interested in any of these products, you want to learn more, check pricing, we do have links for them in the description below, so you can check that as the build progresses. If you need a refresher of what parts are being used, all of that is under the description below. So yeah, all that stuff is there. Next component we've got from Sabrent. We have got there, now they say that this is a gaming specific SSD. Now whether an SSD can be gaming specific, not 100% sure, but we have got the Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus G in a 2TB model. So this is a PCIe 4.0 SSD. Again, the G means gaming. So again, not really sure whether that's a thing, but anyway, comes with a Phison E18 controller, Micron TLC NAND as well. I think you get like 7 gigabytes per second reads and writes sequential off this drive. Again, it's not really, this is just going to be a boot drive for the system. Most of the games are going to be on other SSDs, but yeah, these are not too expensive. I think they're like $150 right now on Newegg, obviously for a higher end PCI 4.0 drive. They also sent out, along with that, their Rocket NVMe heatsink. So to get the best performance out of a drive like this, you will need some M.2 cooling. So we'll see whether we'll use either the Rocket heatsink or we'll use the cooling on the MSI motherboard. If you have a look here, obviously some of the M.2 slots are covered by these heat spreaders and things like that. So I guess it'll be a choice between using the built-in one on the board or using the heatsink that comes with the SSD. I believe this is, these are sold separately, these two separate items, but when Rocket sent this over, they sent over both components. So we've got that. Lastly, well, not lastly, we've got a case as well. Corsair provide the power supply for this build. Love using Corsair power supplies. I use them for pretty much all of the builds in my test systems and things like that. So I've had lots of great success using Corsair power supplies, and that's why I chose to use the RM1000E. So modular design, which again is essential. I wouldn't typically, oh, just see a bit of light reflection there. I'll hold it down a bit further like here. Modular design, wouldn't use a power supply without a modular design. Just makes it so much easier for cable management in the case. Again, a lot of power supplies are modular these days, but just sort of an essential feature. 1000 watts, going to provide plenty of power for things like 4090s. The CPU isn't that power hungry, but you know, future stuff. As well, this is an ATX 3.0 power supply and PCI 5.0, so it already comes with the NVIDIA 12 volt HW, whatever it is, power cable. So that's already included in here. Don't need to use the adapter or anything like that. So fingers crossed we'll get that working, slotted in nicely with no other issues. And yeah, Corsair power supply, so 7-year warranty on this. And with a gaming build, I always want to make sure that I'm choosing a power supply that's going to last throughout the lifespan of this build. Because we're going AM5 and we're building, you know, with sort of the first gen Zen stuff on that platform, it allows a lot of upgradability. So in the future, if there's an 8700X3D, which would be like a Zen 5 CPU, and I want to upgrade to that, then you know the power supply is still going to be under warranty for pretty much the whole period of this gaming build. And I don't imagine, I mean, maybe for the channel we'll do some more gaming builds in the future, but this is sort of really setting, you know, this is setting a really good platform for the future. Good quality motherboard, good quality power supply, good quality CPU cooler, and a massive case, which is actually down there. Not going to bring that up just yet because it is seriously big. But that's sort of setting the platform for future upgrades. We want to slot more stuff in, capture cards, we want to put in even more SSDs than the 16 terabytes I was talking about previously. All of this stuff is hopefully going to last a super long time. So yeah, love Corsair power supplies. We'll be slotting that in later. And just briefly, let me just move to this side. Down here, this thing, I think I'm pointing to that correctly. This is the case that we'll be using, which is the Asus ROG Hyperion. The only thing I didn't personally choose out of these components for this build is the case. And that's because I don't really mind too much what case is being used. So when I was talking to Asus about getting the 4090, getting their liquid cooler, they're like, hey, we can provide you a case as well. I'm like, okay, I don't really have too much of an idea about the specific case that I want to be using for my PC build, so send me whatever. They ended up sending me one of the biggest cases I've ever seen, which is the Asus ROG Hyperion. This is a super high-end case. I think it's like $450 on Newegg. Oh, and power supply as well. I think that's $160 on Newegg if you're interested. Just, again, links in the description. So it's a $450 case. It's massive. It's an extended ATX case. It fits in like two 420mm radiators. It's got USB, tons of USB ports on the front. It actually looks pretty neat. It's got carrying handles, those sorts of things. It is really heavy. And because I'm using a standing desk, I thought I only want to lift this thing up onto the desk once. So I'll get that out of the way later in the build. We'll have a bit of a closer look at the case in that sort of later part of the build. But it is seriously big. It's seriously big, but I'm going to love building in it because there is so much cable management space. I was sort of having a look in there earlier. Yeah, heaps of space. So, as I mentioned in the sort of title and the start of this build, that this is a high-end overkill build. And when I was choosing all my parts, I was like, let's get this, blah, 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 blah. It'll all come out to a reasonable amount for a high-end build. But as it turns out, all of these components would have cost, in total, $4,375 US if I was buying them on Newegg. That does not include Windows or any peripherals or accessories. That's just the GPU, the motherboard, the CPU, cooler, storage, RAM, power supply, and case. So it's a very expensive build, as it turns out. Turns out going high-end these days is super expensive. Now, half of that price is, of course, this beefy GPU here. So this is $2,000 worth of the $4,375 total build price. Again, the motherboard as well is $700. So those two things add up quite a bit. But again, you know, build high-end stuff. Let's go full all out. So I guess I'll be eating 2-minute noodles for the rest of my life to pay off this build, because I certainly won't have any money left over for anything else after this. Neo says, Tim, love the channel. Keep up the amazing content. Based on your videos and personal recommendations, I recently bought the Dell Alienware AW3423 DWF, currently awaiting delivery. Thanks so much. So yeah, thanks for watching our content. That is a great monitor. Coming up on the channel soon, not this channel, Monitors Unboxed, will be a ranking of all the OLED monitors that I've ever reviewed. So I've tested 14 OLED gaming monitors on the channel over the years, and the DWF gets ranked pretty highly in that video. I won't give you any spoilers as to exactly where it is in the rankings, but it's a very high ranking, so it's a great monitor. And yeah, I guess paired with this, something that's not really included in the build because I already have it, is again, sitting over there, is the AW3423DW. That is the monitor that I use. That's like $1,300 monitor. So in total, the setup, including keyboard, mouse, audio, things like that, would probably total around $5,000 to $5,500 US for the setup, which, as James says in the super chat, that's like a squillion Aussie dollars. So I don't even know what the conversion is for Aussie dollars on this stuff. 10,000, 15,000 Aussie. It's probably very, very expensive. If someone wants to run the numbers, then yeah, put it in the chat below. But yeah, as I said, there was really no holds barred for these components. Sort of just going with the best quality stuff that suits the needs. Again, motherboard because of 10 gig networking. This because it's the most expensive, beefiest, hopefully the quietest build. I really value quiet components as well. So yeah, so I guess it's probably time to get building. So yeah, let's move some of these components away. Let's get to some motherboard related stuff. So I'll just put these stuff over here. So I think someone was asking about the power supply. The power supply is ATX 3.0 standard. I saw that in the chat. So the power supply, yes, fully modular ATX 3.0 standard. And it does come with the power connector. I think where in the box do they show the power connectors? On the bottom here. So let's go to the top camera. So if we have a look at the bottom here, it does come with one of the 12 volt HPWR power connectors, as well as all the other stuff, which is obviously going to be suitable for the motherboard and things like that. So yeah, definitely ATX 3.0 power supply. But anyway, let's put that over there for now. We will need the CPU, so I should probably keep that handy. I'll need the motherboard. We will build that first. GPU, we'll leave that to later. Put that over there. I'll need the memory in a moment. Keep that handy. Okay. Let's open up the motherboard box. Let's get that nice and centered in the frame on our Gamers Nexus mod mat. Great product. Love using it. So here we go. Here is this big, well, it's not that big, but obviously very beefy motherboard that we've got here in the X670E Ace. There might be a few things I need to take out of here as well, so let's just take a quick look underneath all these components. So they did indeed provide the M.2 expander card. Again, I thought that this would be provided with all of the motherboards, all of these, the version of this motherboard. So we'll just take a quick look at that because this may come in handy. So the idea here is that underneath here, if you can sort of see through here, that there are a couple of extra M.2 slots. So if I wanted to add in more M.2 functionality into my board, it already comes with 4 slots, but if I wanted to add something else extra in, then this M.2 expander card is there. And again, this is sort of why we're looking at a $700 motherboard, is it comes with things like this. Is it worth that price? Probably not, but for the sort of features that I need. I don't think I need too many of these other things. Wi-Fi might come in handy. It has got Wi-Fi 6E, so that might come in handy. I'll probably just leave that out for now. We've got some RGB cables and things like that, so we'll see if we need those. They've got their M.2 sort of locker thing as well. I'll keep one of those out so that when I put the SSD in, I can use that if it's not already provided in the slot that I'm using. SATA cables, don't need that just yet. I'll try fit this back in the box if I can remember which way around it went. There we go. So that's that. Not going to fit that in. Okay. X670E Ace. As you can see, brand new model. So we can do the old unpackaging experience and you can enjoy the lovely sounds of things being taken out of boxes and flipped around and enjoyed. This is a really heavy motherboard. It's seriously big and beefy. So put that away. So we've got some like things to be peeled off at some point, especially when we get closer to putting into the build. A little bit of plastic here and around there. Good I/O functionality, lots of USB ports. I hate it when we see motherboard I/O that doesn't have enough USB ports and they've just not really utilizing all this space, but obviously we've got all the audio, Wi-Fi, 10 gig networking, plenty USB, and even some, BIOS flashback and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure whether this will post with the 7800 X3D without a BIOS update, so I haven't done any BIOS updating or anything, so I'm going to slot it in. We'll try work it, make it work, and then if it doesn't, we'll do a BIOS update on the stream. We'll see how that goes. So first of all, let us put the CPU in. So this is what you get inside. As I said, this is an AMD sample version. So AMD did provide this CPU for us. This is sort of the experience that you get when using a 7800 X3D, taking it out of the box. You get this nice little, CPU. Got a sticker for the outside of the build if you really want to put that on there. You get some packaging and stuff. But the rest of the box is just this big foam block. There's nothing else in there. There's no CPU cooler provided with these. So as you see, the rest of the box is just that big foam sort of block thing. So it makes the packaging more impressive, but isn't actually necessary for the CPU because it's just in there with all this other stuff. So we will store that. Obviously, this is the money. This is what we're looking for. This is what we paid for, although AMD did provide it. So, yeah, the CPU heat spreader design. I've seen someone comment about that in the chat. Yeah, not the most attractive design. I think the AM4 CPUs looked a little bit nicer with the more cleaner design, but it's very functional. So, what are you going to do? So, here we go. The one thing that Baylor never wanted to do was put these things into the CPU socket, because I guess you could drop it in the wrong way, things like that. But with the 7800 X3D and these sort of motherboards, very simple process with AM5. So as you can see, they've gone from the pins on the bottom to just the flat design with no pins. So they've got technical names. Steve will be up on that, but I've just forgotten it in just at the moment. But so yeah, with the pins on the motherboard design, we've got this little triangle in the corner, and there's a triangle on the socket itself as well, which is probably pretty difficult to see even from the top-down camera angle, but it is just in that top corner there. So as you would expect, you'd want the CPU text to be aligned with the same alignment as the motherboard, so it makes sense that it slots in this way. But basically, we just drop that in. There's little two tabs on there. You really can't go wrong with these sorts of things. Now, usually with these things, when we pop these down, we sort of start to apply pressure. The plastic comes off, so that's come off as expected. Apply the pressure the whole way down, it's in. CPU's installed. Very simple process. Love installing these CPUs like this. Makes it a lot easier to do. And we end up with just a few extra bits and pieces. I always, as well, like to keep this just in case I'm doing, like I'm going to sell the motherboard later or something like that. Not that I'll be doing that with this build, but I usually like to just keep this little thing so I can put it back on there if there's no CPU in the motherboard for whatever reason in the future. It's just a handy little protection thing, so I usually just keep that with the motherboard. So I'll store that there with all the other motherboard components and things. So next up, my usual build process would be installing the memory, the DDR5 RGB memory, Trident Z5 Neo from G.Skill. So for that, we will have to open the package because I believe it is sealed. Maybe it wasn't. Either way, it doesn't really matter too much. And yeah, as Steve has been saying, Steve is manning his gaming Unboxed channel at the moment. He has ordered both the 5600 X3D, the Micro Center exclusive, and the 7900 GRE as components to be tested on the Hardware Unboxed channel soon. So the interesting thing with the 7900 GRE, maybe we'll just talk about this briefly before putting the memory in. The interesting thing about the GRE model was that AMD, it's a DIY only part for China, or DIY part for China only. So if you are in China, you can just buy the card by itself. But in other regions like Australia, it's only being sold as an add-in card for system integrators. So for people who wanted to buy just the card itself in Australia, you can't. The only way to do that is by buying a whole system. And we thought, okay, well, maybe there'll be AMD will want to send a card, or maybe there'll be a board partner that will want to send a card, or a distributor, or there'll be someone that will just send us the card by itself. Turns out, no, AMD's not running a review program for the card, so that's a bit weird. So they're obviously not very interested in letting people know what sort of performance they're getting. Even if you're buying a pre-built, you'll probably want to know what performance you're getting, how it compares to a 7900 XT, because that will, determine the level of build that you go for. Like, you could be spending more money to get an XT model, you could be spending less maybe to get an RTX 4070 or 4070 Ti. So you really do want to know how those things perform. AMD's not doing a review program for the GRE model. But what was even more weird with things like board partners just saying, no, we're not allowed to send this card out, things like that. Pretty weird. So Steve went and bought an entire system. It was like several $1,000s just to get the GPU, which is the only thing he actually wants from the build. But he did buy a full system pre-built that's got the GRE, 7900 GRE in it. He'll be taking that out to do a full review. So interesting there. We'll see what the conclusion is, whether there's anything that AMD's trying to hide there in terms of, making it more difficult to get the card into the hands of reviewers. Again, with these sort of China-only models, we tend to see there can be a few weird things going on there, where there's a GPU that's sent that, doesn't necessarily perform up to the claims, or is named oddly, or there's something going on there. So we'll see. We'll see what's going on. So yeah, that's pretty much that on the GRE model. I'm sure Steve will be able to elaborate a bit more in the chat about the process for that and the things that have been going on, but we had a good chat about that yesterday to sort of see exactly what's going on with trying to order that model, because we do try and provide all the GPU reviews for models that are out there, and the GRE did seem like an interesting part because it is a cut down version of the XT, potentially a different die. I think it's got 80 compute units, only 16 gigabytes of memory instead of 20 gigabytes like we get on the other two models, those being the XT and the XTX. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with the GRE. But for now, let's install the memory. So we've got the DDR5 memory here. And like with a lot of these motherboards, again, it's probably going to be pretty difficult to see from the top-down camera because it's so small. But on this MSI board, they do tell you the slots to populate first. So those being the A2 and B2 slots. So that's this slot and this slot, the outer two slots, I guess. So we'll just see which way they go around. Looks like they'll go around this way. So yeah, we've got one of these boards where only one, no. Oh yeah, both sides snap out. We can just chuck the memory in. Push down until it snaps all the way. And that is seated in all the way. And I actually think that the design of the G-Skill memory with the sort of black metal finish, some nice texturing going on there with the two different types of, it's sort of got this brush design, this sort of more powder coated design for the top. I think that is fitting in really nicely with the rest of the MSI board that we're seeing here. The black and black sort of has melded up nicely. That's obviously a Gen 5 slot there. So that that's gone really nicely in there, and I think it's going to look nice with the RGB there. Anyway, it's always nice when those things come together. I'm not really building this as a color specific build, although it does turn out that I think most of the components are going to be black and built in a black case. So, there we go. So, memory timing. Someone has asked about that in the chat. So here is the back of the components, the component case. So DDR5 6000 in a 2x16GB kit, CL30, 38, 38, 96 with Expo support. So I'll just be going to the BIOS, hitting Expo. Won't do any further tuning because, as we've seen in some of Steve's videos, you can eke out a little bit of extra performance tuning memory, but I'd want it to run relatively stable, and also I can't be bothered. So that's pretty much the real reason. So yeah, DDR5 6000 CL30 memory there from G.Skill soldered into the build. I think the next component that would make sense to include here is the memory. Sorry, not the memory, the SSD. Here we go, SSD. So just get rid of some of that stuff. So we have got a choice here. I'll probably put it into the Lightning Gen 5 slot. I think that would make the most sense as the primary boot drive. If I don't really need a Gen 5 SSD for this build, it's not really necessary at the moment. I think that it makes the most sense to populate it over here so that, again, there's sort of better heat access as well. This will be under the GPU, so potentially small impact there for thermals. But we have got the choice. We can put on the Rocket NVMe heatsink from Sabrent alongside the 4 Plus SSD, Rocket 4 Plus G SSD, or we can use the heat spreader that comes on the MSI motherboard. So I don't know, chat, what do you reckon? Put on the Sabrent Rocket NVMe heatsink or use the MSI thing? I could probably do a poll. There's probably something I can do there. But anyway, the first things first is that we have to actually take off this, which I believe with these boards, these are the sort of easy to undo design. And now that I say easy, there we go. You got to lift the lever up a bit harder than I was pulling it there. So, okay, let's see what people say. Motherboard, Sabrent, Mobo, heat spreader, fancy call. Well, maybe to make the decision, it seems like there's a bit of a split decision there. Let's have a look at what the Rocket heatsink looks like, because maybe it'll complement the build a bit better. Obviously, the motherboard one's going to look in line with what the motherboard looks like. So that's always an advantage there. But so get rid of some plastic. Let's do the old unboxing experience. So little installation guide. Maybe we'll need that. Ooh, wow! It's actually, I was not expecting. It is extremely shiny. The box is not lying about. Look at the box. It's even shinier than on the box. That's crazy. And my fingerprints are going all over it. So that's this sort of super shiny thing, and it's got heat sinks on it. It's got heat pipes on it as well. So you guys got to decide. We can use the black one that comes with it, or this sort of, yeah. Someone said bismuth in the chat. I think it looks so weird that we've got to kind of use it. In the box, it also comes with a few other little bits and pieces. So we've got the rear casing as well. So I guess this goes this goes on the back side, and this obviously then slots in like this. So we'll try to get that working, but interesting. They also come in the box with, again, it's quite nicely packaged. They have got this screwdriver, and also the screws are sort of outlined in the box like this. So I imagine we're supposed to take those out and put them into the component there. So I think this requires a poll. So let's get a poll set up. How do we do that on the chat? Start a poll. All right. Which heatsink should I use for the SSD? MSI Ace motherboard or the Sabrent, what is it? Rocket. There we go. All right, everyone, poll is up. Let me know whether we should be using, which of these things we should be using. If we don't end up going with this, I will say that it looks very interesting. I was really not expecting it to be this shiny with that sort of bismuth look there. Alex says, good afternoon from New Zealand. Much love from a big fan and fellow Anzac. Can you tell us something you like about New Zealand? Us Kiwis love that. So part of my family is actually from New Zealand. So I really love New Zealand as a place. I've been there once before. Loved the South Island, seeing all the mountains and stuff. Mount Cook was beautiful, beautiful place. So I know there's a bit of a rivalry between Australia and New Zealand a lot of the time, but it is genuinely a very lovely country to go visit, and I'd like to get back there sometime soon. So it's actually a closer poll than I was expecting. 58% of people at the moment are suggesting that we use the Sabrent Rocket SSD cover, while we have got a 42% for the MSI Lightning M.2's cover. So this is, it's a bit thinner than what we're seeing from the Rocket, but it is a bit longer as well. So, it's designed to go on that same sort of thing. So this will be sort of, if we do end up going with that design, we'll be slotting in like this. So that's sort of what it will look like. And I think it looks like we will be going with that just based on the poll at the moment. We have got 460 votes, so I'm not expecting that to change too much. I think we will be going with this, which is, again, just a wild looking thing. I was really hoping that this would be chosen in the poll, so yeah, very interesting. Let's go with that. Crazy looking. All right. Will the SSD look anything like that? We will see in a moment. If I can get just get the plastic off. 57% of people say they have terrible taste. Well, maybe that's true. It's certainly will stand out on the build, but again, I am all for choosing whatever. So I'm all for choosing that. So Sabrent SSDs always come with this nice sort of packaging. So in this instance, we've got this copper design. So on the outside, unlock the speed. All right, unlock the speed. Let's do it. And here it is. I always like keeping these, handy to store SSDs and things. When I brought my editing SSD over to Taiwan for Computex, it wasn't a Sabrent SSD, but I stored it in this little case because it's so easy. It just provides a bit of protection. Boom, put that into a backpack or something. Makes it really easy. But this is the Rocket 4 Plus. So obviously this will go on there like that. And I guess we'll just be screwed in through all those things. So 57% of people said I should use the Disco version. Sabrent drives run hot, so going to need that SSD. All right, let's take a look at how we're supposed to install it using the installation guide. So make sure to remove the clear thermal pad protector from the thermal pad placed on both the heatsink and on the tray prior to placing the drive on the tray. So does this have some sort of, I don't think it does. Yeah, I don't or maybe it goes on the inside. Yep. There we go. That'll be why. It's 2 parts. I'm an idiot. There we go. So I guess they've provided a second one for some reason. Not quite sure what the differences are between those 2 parts, but it does come with that. Does it say what that's used for? Guess it's just got a separate thing on it. Potent blend of copper and aluminum, or aluminium if you're in Australia, for maximum performance. Interesting. So yeah, maybe it is for hot swapping. As someone said, you keep this sort of slotted into the board, and then I guess the question is, I probably would have to remove this back heat spreader as well that's already included on here to fit this in. That's probably going to be the case, because it's not going to slot over the little M.2 latchy thing that they've got installed on there. So I'm probably, most likely going to have to take that off. So we'll see how easy that is in just a moment. Aluminium is the objectively correct pronunciation. I probably agree with that one. So yeah, once someone said in the chat, single-sided versus double-sided, that probably makes the most sense. Again, they've got their installation guide. Oh, I've just been looking here. Identify if the drive is single or double-sided. Yeah, this makes sense. Now, where did I put it? It's right here. So single or double-sided, we clearly have a double-sided drive, so we will need to use the double-sided one, which will be this one. Single-sided. If your drive is single-sided, please continue the installation with the single-sided tray. If your drive is double-sided, use the respective tray. So yeah, that makes the most sense. So this would be the double-sided tray. This surely is the single-sided tray because it doesn't have the heat contact pad, the thermal pad on the bottom. So I'll just put that to the side. So first of all, I'm using my LTT screwdriver. I'll need to use a different bit to get that out. So let's use the smaller bit that it comes with. I think that'll be suitable size. Let's just try the other one. This one fits the best. Alrighty. Okay, it's off. So that was very easy if we didn't want to use the back spreader. And that's going to give us the full room to put in the whole thing, which is going to slot in into there like this. So that's going to give us sort of that maximum performance, I guess. Seems to still have good clearance, not going to be touching anything I wouldn't have thought. So all right, let's keep following the little instruction guide. Place the SSD in the tray on the thermal pad. Make sure the groove for the screw, yeah, all makes sense. So I'll have to remove the pad here. Put this SSD into here. Make sure it fits into that little groove. Want to make sure the PCB is aligned there into that groove. Push down, make sure it's nice and secure in there. Ask Sabrent to make a black one. They might make a black one. I'm not sure. Attach the tray with the drive to the heatsink, ensuring that the side with the uneven coils are at the back. Okay. Makes sense. So the uneven coils. Yep. So meant for the groove, the screws. So obviously this side is meant to be on this end. Don't know why I even need to read the instructions for that. That makes the most sense. Looks like there's no protective plastic or any layer on there to peel off, unlike the other one. So that should just be ready. Or is there? No, don't think so. I think that's just meant to go straight on. Oh no, there is a... I thought so. It looked too shiny to be a thermal pad, but this one had a tab on it, the other one didn't. Guess that's the difference there. So let's put that on, make sure that actually I'll do this in camera, make sure that this is slotting directly over that screw zone there. So we'll press down. Seems to be looking okay. So align the holes that are on the side of the tray. You may need to apply pressure, then insert 2 screws on each side. So that means we have to take the little screws out of the box that we've got here. So these are tiny screws and they each come individually in the box, which is kind of funny. Hey lads, cheers for making the for all the unbiased information you provide. You definitely help my mate, and I get addicted to benchmarking. Are you hiring? Not hiring at the moment, unfortunately, but yeah, thanks for all the support and watching our videos. Really do appreciate it. So let's see how much pressure I have to put in to get that. And I'm pretty sure that I've used the right tray. It is going to be hard to align those things into there because the screw hole doesn't quite match up with the... I'm not sure I'll be able to get that in there the whole way. Now I could just fang it in there anyway, but there is the possibility that I was supposed to use the other tray. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be getting those screws in. I'm already applying quite a bit of pressure, so I think maybe that's what this other one is for. But I would have thought that you'd want the thermal performance from the thermal pad on both sides with a double-sided SSD. So okay, well it definitely seems to suggest that I should be using the one with the 2 thermal pads. So that's interesting. Maybe I have to apply even more pressure. I guess I'll try screw it in. We'll try screw it in. Yeah, it's definitely not going in with the amount of pressure that I was applying there. So, it's pretty securely in anyway without the screws. So, just slot it in without the screws. Probably should be okay. Yeah, clearance looks okay. There's no problems there. So, considering the screws, we'll just leave that for now. I do need to find a mounting thing, which would have come with the motherboard too, so we can slot the SSD in there. If Nvidia puts the CG ladies back on their packaging, maybe the prices will be justified and seem more lucrative. Yeah, potentially. So, motherboard. Make sure I don't lose these screws, just in case we need them for something else. Put them over here for now. All right. The pole is changing. Maybe we'll have to revert back to the other one. Now, we'll see whether we've got any... So we've got the... Oh, we've got an MSI USB that comes with it. That's nice. So MSI usually provides these M.2 locker things, and they've got this M.3 screw thing as well. But yeah, I guess they don't have... Maybe these come apart. I'm just looking for like... Yeah, they've got M.2 mounting holes some of the time, but obviously I took that out to put in the... Another M.2 locker. Maybe they don't have it. Maybe they only have them under the other parts of the motherboard, which would certainly be interesting, which would mean I need to take one from here and put it up over here to fit it in, which would certainly be interesting. And again, still not 100% sure about those screw holes, whether I'm using the right one or not. I would have thought I am. So anyway, let's see what's underneath here. Yeah, these only have got the M.2 locker things as well there, which would mean that if I wanted to mount the old troubleshooting things as we go. So yeah, I mean, if I just have a look at all these, they've all got the little M.2 locker things on it, which unless they come into 2 parts, is probably, I mean, they might. Okay, so my guess is that maybe if we just unscrew this, that looks like it accepts it. That looks like that'll accept that for sure. Yes, we're in business. We are in business. I just realized that the motherboard is now slightly out of focus, so let's get this box back. All right, motherboard back in focus. So yeah, unscrewed the little M.2 flicky thing that goes on there, the whatever they call it, the M.2 locker. It's allowed us to have that little space in there. And if we check the poll, as I put the SSD in, just for reference sake, the Sabrent Rocket heat spreader thing is still at 51%. So as I'm putting it in, I'm going to insert it because it is still slightly in the lead, which is good enough for me. So I'm just going to turn this around, make sure that that is actually it's not very well aligned like that, if I'm perfectly honest. I think maybe it's supposed to slot under this. Like, or does it slot directly into the hole? Yeah, this seems to be too tall, this little thing here. So that little piece there, when put directly onto that, let me just show you. Let me screw this back in. So that would be fine if we were installing this with no, like if we were just putting the SSD in with no additional things, it may have fit in. But as you can see, it's angled because the little, the M.2 riser thing that would be mounting on it is obviously far taller than the actual SSD PCB. So because of that, we're at this weird angle. So yeah, I'm thinking based on that with the poll and everything, that we might switch to the other one, which would make a bit more sense at the moment. Because yeah, at the moment I just don't see that fitting nicely into this motherboard slot at the moment. Which again, yeah, if this goes underneath here, yeah, that's just not going to be at a good angle, I don't think. I just don't think that's, yeah, don't think that's suitable. Now, when I put the other, there is a chance that this, yeah, again, that doesn't even fit in there. So I was clearly using the right one, because that doesn't, with the dual layer PCB, that just does not fit into there underneath the little hook that they're suggesting. And then when this is on, it goes in there like that, and then even without the heat spreader, it's still mounted at a dodgy angle, an angle that I would not be happy with. So it would need, I guess, for this to be compatible with this board and fit a bit better, they'd need to provide something that would go in between this hole that's in the motherboard and the SSD thing. So this screw would either need to screw directly into the motherboard, which is obviously too thin to do that, or it would then need to provide like a little smaller riser, because as we see here with the gap between that PCB and the backside of this heat spreader, it's just not going to fit in there unless we want that angle, which, you know, I'm sort of saying we don't want that angle at all. So yes, I'm thinking that this SSD is cooler, would be maybe suitable for a different motherboard, but we will go with the Lightning Gen 2 drive thing, which I think is sort of a bit better suited to the board in terms of fitting in. So yeah, a bit of live troubleshooting there, trying to get the SSD in with the different options and things that we've got there. But in the end, the MSI one is going to win out. So do like the design though. It's unfortunate because I really do like the different colors of that one. But whatever, we will use that at a different time. All right, so we don't need any of these bits and pieces anymore. Don't need any of this stuff. So just put that over there. Oh, and the little screws as well. Should probably keep those somewhere so we don't lose them because they are so tiny. Keep those up there. All right, SSD in. Looking okay. Slots in, we should just be able to use the little M.2 locker thing from MSI to lock that in there. Again, because it's a dual layer design, it's a little bit tougher to fit in there, but that seems to be fitting in there nice and flush, so that's good. And with these, we don't need a, there's no screws or anything. So obviously, before I do that, I should probably take off the plastic. There we go. And then, so this thing just slots in like this, and then we just push it down, and it should be locked in now. I think it's a little bit loose. I might just try do that again. I don't think I quite got enough pressure on there to put the M.2 locker thing fully around here. Yeah, that's better. Yeah, got that in better that time. Nice. Chuck this in over the top. Clipped in. Heard a nice click. It's now secure. So there we go. And the MSI motherboard on the poll, by the time I actually finished doing that, has now got into the lead with 51% over 49% for the other one. So bit of a process there to figure that out. It is unusual that this, obviously it's a very thick and beefy sort of design, but just slightly incompatible with the board in terms of how thick this bottom plate is. Certainly the sandwiching with the dual layer PCB, the heat spreader and things, and trying to get that fitting onto the little mounting thing just didn't work, which is unfortunate. But I'm sure that there are other motherboards that would be designed for to work a little bit better there. You can always probably ask Sabrent about that. But either way, we do need cooling for this sort of SSD. It is powerful enough that it will require cooling, but because this is PCI designed for PCI 5.0 drives, I would think that this would be sufficient. Plus, it's just a boot drive for gaming, so fingers crossed. Yeah, not too much more. So no other SSDs. So we'll just slot these back on and screw them down in just a moment. So don't need those. We tried, Team Rocket, we tried, says Richard in the super chats. So, yeah, there we go. Let's see what else is happening in chat. This is what happens when you let an engineer build something, it never gets done. That's Steve over there on the old Hardware Unboxed channel. So anyway, yeah, we're done with that for now. So I guess it's time to bring up this enormous case to get into the next part of the build. So I just have to make a lot of room for this because it is big. Make sure I've got all those components over there. Put this over here for now. Chuck some of this stuff away. There's another screw, tiny screw. All right, so I'll switch to the front camera for this. For this giant case that I have to bring over here. Okay, let's so this is the ROG Hyperion. This is the case that we'll be using, which is obviously a massive case, and you can see from the front, that's got this sort of angular design with vents in here for the cooling goes in through here, and up the top here, plenty of USB, which I really do like. It's got a couple of USB-C ports as well. I think they do like 60 watts of power delivery, which is good for charging. I think you can charge even like a laptop from this sort of thing. But this is a big ATX case. So as you can see, yeah, it is huge. Takes up a lot of space, but it's got these doors, the sort of magnetic doors. There's one on the back as well, so it goes both ways on either side. And yeah, there's a lot of space on the inside. So we'll take off store this over here for now. So yeah, this is the inside of the case that we're working with. So I think ASUS over here have got sort of this RGB plate design here. So once we turn the case on, this will hopefully illuminate. Down the bottom as well here, we've got this very interesting storage design. So once we take off some of the PCIe connectors here, we put this into, you can slot these into here, and there's even this little tray here so you can store additional accessories and things, which I don't know if I'll ever use that, but it's sort of kind of a neat addition thing. There's a window here where we will be able to see the power supply through there. Obviously huge, lots of room for our gigantic GPU that we're putting in. It's got a built-in GPU bracket as well that's just here. So once we slot the motherboard in, we'll be able to adjust all that. And it comes with 4 fans. So there's a rear 140 at the back there. At the front here, there's 3 140s as well. And then we'll hopefully be mounting the radiator, the 360mm in the top along here, which is also just vented straight out the top. So if we look at the top here, there's just vents there as well. So, so yeah, this will be big. So I'm just going to take off the rear glass panel as well, just to make it a bit easier to work with. And, well, I guess that top panel is magnetic as well. So that's actually going to make it a lot easier for me to install things. So I'll just put that to the side. All right, so I'm going to need to have it around this way. Okay, so let's get this in a position where you can all see the motherboard installation and things. So this did also come with an accessory box, which I have put somewhere, so I'll just have to go get that. So when you buy the case, it also comes with this little box of accessories and things here. So it's got in some different power connectors and sleeved accessories. It's got some, you know, obviously all the screws and things that we need. It's also got, not even sure what this is. Let's have a look. Oh, that's kind of neat. So I guess once we've got all the screws in, we can install them into here. So they've provided a nice screwdriver for us to use. I think I'll stick to the LTT screwdriver for now, but they do provide one, which I guess when you're spending $450 US on a case, it makes sense. And obviously these are all the screws and stuff that we're going to need. So let's put them over here. Motherboard. Now before inserting this the whole way, I'm just going to peel off the plastic on this side, just because that's going to potentially get in the way. And I'll peel off the rear one as well. So, what do we got on Steve's new poll here? Is the ASUS case too big? Yes, no, maybe. Slow. Yes, Steve is making fun of the SSD process, I guess. Now with the angles of here, I'll probably have to either remove the fan or remove the GPU mounting bracket to slot the motherboard in like that. Unless it comes with a removable motherboard tray, which it doesn't look like it does. So I think the easiest thing is probably not removing that. What was actually hitting on that? Yeah, I think it's just this. I think it's just this. If I slot this down a little bit, should be able to slot the motherboard through. No such thing as too big of a case, I don't think. I think that should be enough clearance. Probably didn't need to unscrew that the whole way. I'll just remove this the whole way out. There we go. All right, fingers crossed that this will slide in under here. In we go. And in we go. So yeah, that's looking okay. That's looking okay. All looking fine to me. All right, let's find the old screws. Did he even do the I/O peel? Yes, I peeled it off beforehand. So no need to be concerned about that. So I just need to find the right screws. It's either one of these, probably by the looks of it, these ones. Now, unlike Master Speed Builder Steve over here, who keeps trolling me in the chat, I actually don't build a heap of PCs. You know what, I'll pour these out into the little case here, because ASUS has gone to the effort of providing the motherboard 2.5-inch screw things, that it makes sense to actually use their little screw storage device. So there we go. I'll just take them straight out of there and put them into the case. I guess now before I screw it in, I should probably make sure that the radiator is going to not require any rear access. Or do I have rear access? So that is the question. Oh, I got plenty of rear access. Don't need to worry about that. Just in case I needed to undo some of that. How on earth did I get this in here before? Seriously, I've taken it out and I can't put it back in. What the hell? Ah, there we go. It's a very tight fit, at least doing it this way. All right, it will be much easier if I just... this is an interesting design on the back here, I've just noticed, with this fan. Interesting. Interesting how that goes in there. There's obviously some sort of, some sort of shroud there that keeps this fan in like a little tray or something. Interesting, because there's two screws here. Probably should have just done that from the start, to be honest. So, much easier slotting in of the motherboard now. Get in. There we go. Yeah, such a massive heatsink. And yeah, that slots in there. Interesting design. Quite like that for a rear fan access. Don't mind that. So, how's things, everyone? How are things? Got to screw in with confidence. Yes, got to screw in with confidence. Okie dokie. The riveting stuff of doing a PC build where you have to screw in a whole bunch of screws as part of it. Normally, if we were just doing this build edited, I would have edited all of this out. At least edited the screwing part in out. And yes, I will be peeling off the remaining bits and pieces in a moment, so don't worry about that. But you know, like to keep it as pristine as possible until the end, as close to the end of the build as possible. Sometimes that's not possible for various reasons. So this screwdriver is probably a little too long for screwing that in, so I'll switch to the old Asus ROG one that they provide. Okay, we're getting there. Gonna have to rotate the case to see those top screws because this case is so large. Make a bit of room here. And yeah, apologies for not being you guys not being able to see the top part of the case here just at the moment, but yeah, that's just the way that it is at the moment. So yeah, it's all looking good, all looking flush, so that's good. Need to zoom out for the case. It's a thick case. Yeah, it is. It is quite chunky. But it's got plenty of room, which makes it easier for some things, I guess. Tim has disappeared inside the case. I have to some degree, yes. So, cool. Last screw to go. And now we can do some very satisfying. That screw has not gone in well at all. A little bit better. All right, some satisfying peeling. Where's the LTT screwdriver? Just here. So I've still been using that for most of the build. Great screwdriver, love using it. Some of the Some of the screws, though, are sort of positioned in ways where the screwdriver can't quite get in there, especially this bottom one down here, just because of this outer edge here. So this screwdriver that they actually include with the case has been quite handy to get into those little couple of extra screws where the LTT one is a little bit larger. I did bring some other screwdrivers, but you know. All right, peel time. So we've got a few peel jobs to be done in here, just by the look of things. So we'll start with this one over here. There's another one just here. And another one. A little bit of extra on the side there. So we've got a bit there. We've got one on the ace. Ooh, that was satisfying. Love that one. And we got, I think this is the final one. There we go. Oh no, one more. Bonus round. Done. There we go. It's looking nice in there. So, okay, let's just consolidate a bit of the space in here because it's using quite a bit of the space. I'll put some of these screws that we got over here from the M.2 related stuff from earlier, trying to put in that Sabrent heatsink. Just store that over there for now. All right, so next I'll probably install the CPU cooler, which means unboxing it. So here it is. Oh, that is huge. Okay, let's switch to the old main camera for this. There's peel on the back of the board. We'll see about that. So, Ryujin 3 360 ARGB cooler. Let's see how this goes. We will see if it's pre-pasted. Indeed. So, welcome to the Republic of Gamers. We're now part of the Republic of Gamers. This live stream will be available to watch later if you've just sort of joined halfway through. So this is the big block, and as you can see, it is pre-pasted. If you can just see a little bit through there, definitely pre-pasted. So I did bring some paste over here somewhere, but for now we have got it without paste. Now in each of these boxes we have each one of the fans, and these are the Asus fans that have not got any connectors. So, well, they have got a connector, they just don't have the they don't have any wires. So as you can see, this fan just looks like this. No wires on any sides, but it has got the sort of pogo pin connectors. So as we attach these to the block, we should just, or the radiator, should just be able to slot them all in, no wires. In theory, that's going to work quite well, and I certainly much appreciate that compared to some of the other designs. So in here we've got all of our mounting hardware and components. We'll go through that in just a moment, see what we've got. Couple more fans. Yeah, rear fan is quite a tight fit. You can see how I was having a little bit of difficulty slowing the motherboard in at an angle under it because it's like right up against the heatsink there on that motherboard. Which is fine. Plenty of room this way. Not quite as much room that way when you've got the 140. Okay, fans. The quick cooler instructions. I think that's it for that box. Here, let's have a look. So we'll keep all that. Okay, get some room for So now we need to figure out, and I honestly don't mind either way on this one. Maybe I'll do another poll. Should we install the fans exhausting through the top of the case or intaking through? So do we want intaking or exhausting? Got to decide that. Don't think it should make too much of a difference, but you know, we're a live stream. Let's do a poll. Intake, exhaust. There we go. Let's go. Meanwhile, I'll just sort of try, let's see what it says here. Remove the hex protection caps before startup, which I assume are somewhere around here. The question is this plastic? Right, let's see what people are saying. Exhaust. That's what I would have gone with. Definitely would have gone with exhaust as my first preference. So, all right. With the old a quick start guide. Intel. Don't need that for this one. AMD. Here we go. Remove the pre-installed heatsink mount. That makes the most sense. There should be an I don't care option. Yeah, that would make the most sense. Okay, remove these. Ah, so good. I don't think we'll need rear motherboard access. Perfect. So we got here the AMD mounting hardware. What's been happening? So 86% say exhaust. Yep, nice. Makes sense. And we will just put these in. So these are for mounting the cooler. And so they just go around like this one around like that. And now we just need to find the screws for that. It should be one of these. Oh, maybe I just put the same screw straight back in. That makes sense. Lots and lots of screwing. So the desktop case we're using is the Asus ROG Hyperion, which is a massive E-ATX case. That is certainly going to fit all of these components. All right. There we go. We just have to now, I guess, take these plastic covers off. So again, they've sort of shipped them with these, what they call, I guess, to protect the heatsink from damage, or the radiator from damage while transporting it. or damage it more by trying to remove this. I didn't quite get the bend throughout the whole thing like I got the previous time. Go. All right, there we go. So, now let's just make sure it fits. I would assume that an Asus radiator would fit with an Asus case, so it definitely does. And now it's time for installing the fans. So because they got these pogo pins, I'm assuming that I'm going to have to install them the right way around so that the pins slot in. Oh, they're magnetic, so they slot in like that. May as well just do them all at once. Seems like it works quite nicely. So if we're exhausting them, we'll need them around that way. Now let's get them to line up with the little holes. And on we go. So it doesn't look like we've got any washers or anything. They've got sort of the pre-installed washers, which makes the most sense. So yeah, we'll just go straight for this. So I guess now's a good time for some chat, considering I've got to put in 12 of these. But the fact that the fans all snap together nicely does make it a little bit easier. Doesn't mean there's as many cables around when installing all these things. How are you going, Steve? I see you've been doing a bit of trolling in the comments as we've been going along, which I always appreciate. A bit of trolling from Steve, because if you go watch some of his live streams, occasionally you'll see me coming in and trolling him doing that stuff. So Tim, don't read, it's awful. Oh, what's going on? Are you guys having fun? Tim, how important is it for monitors to have firmware that can be updated? I was wondering if you've come across many with bugs. Yeah, I've seen quite a few with bugs over the years now, especially with some of the OLED monitors and HDR stuff. I think once we start seeing more monitors doing HDR become more important to have upgradable firmware, it just seems like a lot of monitor brands aren't really nailing the out-of-the-box HDR calibration stuff, which can be pretty difficult to calibrate. Like if you're a user and you want to calibrate an HDR display, it's a lot more difficult than if it was SDR. So yeah, user upgradable firmware I think is really essential for those products. Luckily we are seeing with a lot of the high-end monitors, the OLED stuff, there's only really the Alienware DW that didn't come with upgradable firmware, as far as I know, from the OLED bunch, the newer OLED bunch. And yeah, some of the monitors have improved with firmware updates as well, which is why I think it's really essential. The Asus PG27 AQDM, they improved the HDR calibration on that. LG slightly improved the brightness. Alienware with the DWF, obviously they improved a lot of aspects of the monitor through a number of different firmware updates, which was really positive to see. So yeah, it's been a really good thing to see monitor brands doing that. So I would expect and I would hope that that would continue with high-end monitors. I think for lower end monitors, it still makes a lot of sense to do, simply because once you have some monitors, even mid-range stuff, you know, sometimes they don't ship with sRGB modes. Like we saw the MSI model, I think it was the MAG274QRF-QD. That monitor didn't ship with an sRGB mode. They updated it later with an sRGB mode. So, yeah, that made a lot of sense. It's, yeah, I guess the super entry level stuff, maybe you wouldn't need it. So again, lots of screwing in here to be done. So Steve, if he was using his gyroscopic screwdriver, would probably be smashing through this. HDR looks amazing. I wonder if it will eventually become a standard. I mean, I guess it's almost a standard now in TVs. Like if you were buying a new TV, you'd probably want to make sure it had HDR, and there are lots of decent options there. I think with monitors, it's getting there over time. That one has not gone well. That screen, sorry. Yeah, so I think it'll be a standard over time with monitors. Obviously now it's sort of in the $800 range for HDR sort of as a starting point, which I think is probably a little too expensive for most people. I mean, it's definitely too expensive for most people, but I would think in like 5 years or so that a lot of the products that we're getting will be, yeah, like proper HDR stuff. You know, there's even some attempts at entry level at the moment. So yeah, updated 4080 versus XTX bench suite with new drivers. That one will go over to Steve, who is currently commenting in the chat, for him to answer, because I don't really cover that sort of stuff, which is good. Are you going to do Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart testing? I'm not sure. I wasn't really planning on my end to do any like visual quality stuff. You will see the optimization guides return with the launch of Starfield in like a month from now. So that's probably when we'll start bringing back that stuff. But for now, yeah, not really planning on, not really planning on covering it. I know there's some direct storage stuff that's mildly interesting. Some people have sort of found that potentially direct storage has, turning it off actually improves GPU performance, which I guess was sort of expected to some degree because the GPU decompression, the decompression of the assets is done on the GPU. So if you're using the GPU for decompressing assets, then there's going to be a point where, you're going to start reducing GPU performance. So that sort of thing does interest me a little bit. I'd sort of be keen on checking that out a little bit more. But a lot of people are already covering that, and at the moment, we're doing a few other things at the moment. So, yeah, that's pretty much where that's at. Cool game though. I've played it through on PS5 when it came out. Good game, worth playing if you're after that sort of platformer game. Nice and enjoyable. I had my eyes on the Neo G7, but I just couldn't pull the trigger with the scanline issue. Totally understand that. I think they'll probably, there'll be a new version of that released at some point. So yeah, I would imagine that will go, and be replaced at some point with something a little bit better. Okay, so now that we have got the radiator installed, we can move on to chucking in the pump. So yeah, this will get the cables out the way just there. This is going to be installed just like this. Makes the most sense. We'll have the screen facing around the right way. Nice pump cables running around this way. We'll just switch back over to the top camera. So yeah, the sort of LCD screen is going to go in like that, and yeah, we will install it. But first, before I do that, I will find, lucky there is so much room in this case, I can just put things anywhere, the little thumb screwy things. So I don't really need this anymore. Okay, so just remove the shroud out of the way there, which is going to give us a little bit easier access to the screw holes on either side. So I'm just going to use the built-in thermal paste because I figure why not give that a shot? If it turns out not to work super well, I can just replace that later. Okay, can Dolby Vision be implemented in the same way as HDR for games? Will we ever see Dolby Vision on a monitor? I think we will. You know, you can do Dolby Vision gaming on one of the consoles. Is it the PlayStation 5? I'm not 100% sure which console it is, but I believe Dolby Vision gaming is already supported. So, yeah, I think with monitors, the issue with Dolby Vision is more the licensing costs and things like that. You know, how do we get the Dolby Vision signal processing done, all the DRM related stuff, which I know is painful for PC gaming. So, yeah, the Xbox Series X, is that the one? I think the chat is giving me the information on that. I'm not a huge console gamer, so I'm not 100% sure. Yeah, so basically, I would expect Dolby Vision to come to monitors at some point, but it seems like the ecosystem is more around just HDR10 at the moment. And for like the advantage for Dolby Vision is its dynamic metadata, which theoretically a game could do. I mean, HDR10, yeah, it's not ideal way to do it, but like theoretically, you could have some of the advantages of dynamic metadata through HDR10 anyway. It would just be a matter of making the game process HDR in a better way. So, getting there with this. Hey Tim, I got a 48-inch LG OLED Ultra Gear for my first monitor. I'm stuck with a 1440p OLED 240 or a 4K 27-inch 32-inch. Leaning towards the OLED because 240 is smooth. Use case is 70% gaming, 30% Blender and video editing. So yeah, 1440p OLED 240 or 4K 27-inch 32. I think if you're 70% gaming, I would tend towards the OLED because it's faster at 240 hertz. The OLED obviously has faster response times as well. So if you're gaming even at a lower refresh rate, it will give you greater performance. So yeah, I would probably stick towards the OLED. The downside with something like Blender is, I guess the interface of Blender is quite dark. So that's probably an advantage, but even then you may see some burn-in. So that's just something to keep in mind with the going OLED and still using it for like 30% productivity work. But still, I would recommend, I think in that case, the OLED. But yeah, it sort of will be up to you and your sort of use cases as to what makes the most sense. So we'll just run these cables out over here for the time being. Okay, that's in. Still got to peel that thing off, but we'll do that a bit later. We also have got the fan connector headers and stuff that we will deal with later as well. So just store all that stuff to the side. We'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of some of these. Okay, now I probably put in the GPU now, or power supply. Could go one of either ways, but I think I want to do minimal case movement, so I want to just stand the case up once because it's so big, and then put in the power supply and do the rest. So let's get out the massive ROG Strix model. Would using aftermarket paste or DeBauer's graphene pad offer enough better performance over the stock paste with this expensive of an AIO? I would think it probably would provide a little bit of a performance improvement. I think Steve is going to be doing some testing of the graphene pad at some point, so I can't quite remember exactly when he was planning on having that done, but he said he will do it at some point. So here we go. Here's this absolutely gigantic GPU. So, ASUS ROG Strix model. So we'll see, we obviously need 2 slots, and then we can adjust the little GPU support arm thing to support it. Or maybe I'll use the smaller one. It could come with 2 now. Where did I put that other one? It's probably around here somewhere. Okay. So we need to get rid of... Yeah, LTT screwdriver is not going to be useful there. Yeah, even then this doesn't go through there. That's interesting. We thought that the ASUS case maybe would have had this screwdriver designed for that, and if that doesn't fit through there, then we'll have to go to the old... Oh, actually, one sec. Now, I figure I'll use other YouTubers' gear for doing some of these things. So the old Gamers Nexus toolkit, I think, will be quite handy for this because they've got these long ones. So GN toolkit time. There we go. Perfect. Super easy. So thank you, Jan, for sending over the GN toolkit as well. Oh, it only just fits in the case. No, I'm kidding. It does definitely fits. Definitely fits quite easily, but takes up quite a bit of room. Cool. All right, so just screw that in there. As you can see, it's quite a massive GPU with its 3.5 slot design. It's actually only got 2 brackets on the outside, so it's not using 3 brackets, but it extends the whole way across to the 3.5 slot there. Big chungus. And yeah, GPU support bracket, may as well get that. Oh, it's a bit of a different... It's probably going to block the fan slightly, actually. Probably should have used the smaller one. Let's see if I can find where I put that. Around here somewhere. Or is it up the top? Ah, here it is. So yeah, they've got 2 support brackets. They've got this smaller one, little stubby boy, and they've got this bigger one. The bigger one is currently blocking the fan here. So I think I'll just switch that over to the shorter stubby one. So I have to just remove the GPU for that. So we'll just slide this up the whole way, chuck in the other one. Make sure that's aligned. All right, back in we go. So yeah, when you're buying a 4090, you may as well buy the biggest one. Not really. I mean, it is $2,000 US, I think. Okay, so yeah, the thing I just installed there was I swapped out the GPU support bracket. They've got this long one, which they give you two in the case. The long one would block the fan access there a little bit, so I swapped that out for the smaller, more stubbier one, which can just butt right up to the edge of the GPU there. Just remember that this screwdriver screws that in a little bit better. So to prevent the sag from that GPU, we'll just screw that in. And yeah, that gives us a much nicer and cleaner look, which is harder to see. Maybe I just tilt this up like this. But you can see here that, yeah, that sort of GPU support bracket's only just touching the GPU, but it's going to prevent the sag there. So yeah, we'll see about that. I think it should work quite well. All right, now power supply time. So, it's probably not going to be too much to have a look at here, but the first thing we'll have to do is remove this big plastic shroud here that goes on this side, because the cable management does go behind that. So, just try to find where it's connected. I think this is quite close to the microphone, so you're probably getting a lot of fun stuff going on there. Okay, so case window open. I wonder if this can slot off. Yes. It's always nice when we can remove components like that. So now I sort of have to figure out what's the easiest way to get in the power supply, from the front or from the back. And I think it is probably through here. Even though that's quite a small hole. So I'm imagining that this sort of area is going to have to come out, probably fit in the length of the power supply, but we'll see. We'll see in just a moment. So I don't think we need that just yet. Power supply time, we'll need that. The old big bag of cables. I don't plan on sleeping until you're finished. Well, it's not too much more to do, so get the old big, there's a screw loose in the case. Even this. On this side. So the cables that we need for this build will be, what do we got here? This is the 12 volt HPR cable, so we'll need that. We will need this big cable there. And on the back we've got a fan hub which has all the fans connected. We need SATA power for that, so let's grab one of those. The motherboard has 2 EPS cables, so let's get that in. Here, CPU, PCIe. So those are PCIe cables which we won't need because we've got just the one connector, PCIe, CPU. Do you have any Molex stuff? Doesn't look like it, so we can keep those on the side. So I don't think we need any of those. Yeah, pretty compact power supply for something that's 1,000 watts. But yeah, hopefully it'll fit in easily. We'll see. The motherboard side. Someone's saying there's a loose screw on the motherboard side. Not sure about that. Don't think so. You might need to install structural steel outside on the on my desk to store this thing. Yeah, I'm surprised this desk is held up actually. This thing that I'm using here, the case weighs a lot, so I'm surprised that my desk hasn't broken, which would have made for an interesting stream. I'll tell you that much. So you reckon? Definitely don't hear any screws shingling around in there, so yeah, when we flick around we can have another look at it. We'll see whether there's that loose screw that people are saying, but maybe not. So I tend to like to plug in all the things first, which makes the most sense. So let's go with that. Lifts case to rattle and slips disc. That's a possibility. That is definitely a possibility with this case. CPU, plug in another CPU cable. Wrong side, obviously. We will slam in the Type 4 connector from NVIDIA / the new one. Chuck in the SATA connector. And there we go, there's the spaghetti to be installed. Now we just have to figure out, let's get all these cables out of the way. Another couple of SATA connectors and stuff in there. And see, will it fit through that hole? Now, I wouldn't have thought so. So the other question is potentially, is it slid in through here? Yeah, I think I'm just going to have to remove, that part right there so that will fit in. Because unless I do that, it's not getting in there super easily at all. Okay, so where's the screws? There is also the potential of slotting it in through this way, but I don't think so. I don't think so. Interesting. This case seems complicated. So far it's been relatively easy to get stuff in and out of. Obviously there's a lot of space, especially on the back side here. There's quite a lot of room for cable management, so I think that side of things should be relatively straightforward. I'll one more screw actually. So I think that side of things should be relatively straightforward. But yeah, otherwise it is obviously quite a large case. It's hard to see screws when you're doing it the wrong way around. Interesting. I would have thought that those would have removed this, but I think there might be a screw on the underneath as well, maybe. Just having a look and seeing what's what, because that definitely is not going to fit in through that hole. You can't remove the back, so it's not going to slot in that way. The other option is that it's somewhere on the front, or through the bottom isn't going to work either. This is interesting. Maybe this... maybe this whole section comes out. Okay, well, let's see whether, if I brought in the power, I think I've got a little booklet somewhere that's going to tell us exactly what to do. Check the case manual. User manual, here we go. Remove the PSU cover. Okay, remove the PSU. Ah, so it's installed from... right, yeah, it's installed from the other side. It's installed from the front, which makes a bit more sense. So I'll put these screws back in, because I don't think we need... yeah, I would have thought maybe I could have just taken that out and slotted it in, but not to be. All right, well, I'm going to do some work on this side and see exactly where the mounting points are for this, and then remove that shroud. So 2 screws on the back, which will be, I'm guessing, this screw here. This one just in there. All right. Two more screws on this side, sorry. So, taking off this side panel. Alright, time to put the old power supply in. So I'll just chuck all these cables through here. Okay, get the old power supply little screws. Push it the whole way in before screwing it. That'll make more sense. And one more. All right, so let's get all this stuff into the right spots. So route this cable around and under all these ones up to over here. So yeah, that's gone in nicely. All right, EPS cables. See whereabouts on the motherboard we're looking for, just through this hole. Nice large holes for this. Sometimes sometimes it's hard to route these things in and find the little connectors and stuff, but that was relatively good. Just flick that one around. EPS connectors in, looking nice into there. I'll have to open up these cable management holes in just a moment. And then this one, so they've got an angled shroud here, so this is just gonna pop. Try routing it through. Make sure I plug in the 12 volt HPWR power connector nice and tightly. Really jam it in there, nice and tight. Get in there. They will not be melting on me. No melting. Alright, now we've got to figure out where all the rest of these things go. They've got a zip tie here, but imagine that's got to come off so we can start routing those through to all the other spots. So So those are all those USB and so forth, and fan and things. We've got 2 SATAs and another one here. Not there, there was another one. It was here. Here it is. So 3 SATAs for our SATA power. The pump doesn't need one, does it? No. Okay, plug that in the first way round when I had it correctly. Put this one in. Is this the new gaming build? Yes, this is my new gaming build. So all the components are in the description below if you want to look at exactly what parts I've been using for this build. I'll actually wrap that around the back because that's otherwise going to pinch those cables a little bit. So I'll wrap that under. Got to get that cable management nice. And we'll just shove these in here like this, not with a twist tie. Just shove them in. Those are all the SATA power connectors. Alright, so now we have got the rest of these. So we've got 2 USB headers and 2 USB 2.0 headers. So we'll see how many headers we've got on the motherboard. At least 2 USB 2.0. The other USBs might actually be a little difficult to access because they're right there, pointing out there on the motherboard. So there's a chance we'll get those in. Gonna need to cut that second twist tie there, or zip tie. There we go. This shroud thing's not looking quite as nice. Let's get that back looking a bit better. There we go. Okay, so we'll wrap these 2 up. Up into there. Alright, we'll see how lucky I will be at getting in the USB 3.0 ports, because that's a tight fit with exactly how they've gone on the motherboard. But they're right there, so I reckon I can get at least one. Actually, if I got this around the right way. Yeah. Just going to need to adjust this a little bit so I can actually see what's going on. Yeah, nice, got one in. The other one, that's dicey. Not sure that's going to get in. Probably just leave that one for now. So let's untangle some of those so that can go down in there because we're not using it. What else have we got here? An RGB header. Fan header, that's important. Let's put that in somewhere. Where is a fan? Down the bottom. Here we go. good old cable management part of the build. Everyone loves this part. Oh, it's so much harder when you can't. When you're filming something on a live stream and you're trying to slot stuff in, it is quite a bit harder to see exactly what's going on. So now we've got the front audio. So that's actually what am I? That should be routed. That should be routed through one of these. Specifically this one. Front audio. Front connectors. Which I assume on MSI boards go into JFP1 because they usually do. JFP1, reset switch and power switch, reset switch, be that one. Let's bring that cable back out. Okay, so do some cable routing and stuff. Just turn this around a little bit. So just routing it through, routing these EPS cables through here so we can get a nice clean look from the rear. Hey, you've got to have good attention to detail when you're doing these things. Alright, that's pretty much done from that side. We've got one or two more things to plug in related to the fan pump, so I'm just going to route those in. So and we also need one of these fan connector cables to get from the fans on the AIO to the fans on the... Are these different in any way? No, not really. So with this, we've got the pogo pins. These just connect straight into the fan, and then we've got fan RGB to power all of them. And I assume I can plug those just straight into the old fan controller down here and hope for the best. Now I know why they've got two. One of them has got the pins, one of them's got the holes, and I want the one with the holes. chuck that in up there. Wrap this down to fan, sure, it can be fan 4. LED. That's that, and then this needs to be connected to some USB port, which I've got to find somewhere on the motherboard. USB, there's one. Plenty of USB ports on this board. So USB, we'll plug in the fan here. Ooh. So that should be pretty much it. Put these back in. And now flip it around, put the PSU shroud back on. And we should be in business. Clear away some of this stuff. Alright, PSU shroud. Ooh, satisfying peel job coming up. Yeah, that wasn't as satisfying as the motherboard one. So, just gotta put those screws back on. If I can find them. There's one. And the other one is around here somewhere. If I can find it, there it is. So PSU shroud's back on. Now this goes on, which is the little shroudy thing that they've got. So I'll just screw that in. All right. So this is what it's looking like so far. It's kind of looking okay. I think it's just a little bit, probably improve the cable management around some of these things a little bit better. Looking reasonably neat down the bottom here. I think that looks okay. I'd rather the GPU power cable beneath the GPU, but I might switch that later to running around the top instead of around the bottom. Maybe look a little, but then it has to come out of here. So maybe this looks all right. Got the thing connected there. We've got to peel this off. There we go. So the back's looking reasonably okay. You would have seen part of that. Could probably have done a better job of that, but we'll see. Now the question is, will it boot? Because there's no guarantee it will because of the use of the 7800X3D on this motherboard. It might need a BIOS update. I'm not sure. We will see what happens when I try and boot it in just a moment. If it doesn't boot, it'll need to go through the process. So let's do a poll. Let's see, will it post? No, needs a BIOS update. Ah, Steve's doing a poll. Nice. Okay, so let's just don't need any of this stuff anymore. We need room for a monitor on here somewhere. We'll figure out where to put a monitor in just a moment, so you guys can see it actually boot. All right. Got a power cable. Now, should probably double check I've got all the cables plugged into everything, or at least plugged into something. Got this, got this. Everything's plugged in at the front, looks like. Yep, looking okay. Now let's get a monitor, which I have prepared earlier. That's being the Acer Predator X27 that I've been using recently. So, I wouldn't use anything but an OLED monitor to do this first boot. Now I should probably want to be able to see it myself, just in case. Plug in this DisplayPort cable, which we'll find out if the cable that I got is long enough. Ooh. Just. All right, let's see. How's the poll up? The poll is up to 51% that it will boot the first time. 33% needs Steve's help. Yeah, I doubt that. And yeah, so let's give it a go. Let's see what's going to happen. Where's the power button on this? Here. Have I plugged in the power? That's another question. I should probably make sure that this is actually hooked up to functioning power. Yes. It's in functioning power now. My guess, my personal guess, is that it will need a BIOS update. So we will see what happens. Actually, let's move this down a little bit. So yeah, the ASUS, as Steve says, the lighting here actually works quite well. Well, it says something on the screen. It's doing something. Oh, overdrive fan mode's turned on right now. Should we put on the there's a few extra bits and bobs on the case that need to be put on, like this top panel. So we may as well slot that in. So, this is very difficult for me to see, so hang on. Luckily, OLEDs have really good viewing angles. So... Oh, hang on. I haven't even plugged in a keyboard and mouse. Let me go get one. So, seems to have worked. So yeah, the blacks on the OLED are impressive. Yeah, that's why you use... That's right. One of these groups of USB 3.0 ports on the front, the USB Type A's, I didn't plug in. So let's set Expo. And let us go with the restart. Let's see if it works. Please tell us about the deep blacks for 20 minutes, says Steve. Well, I can tell you a lot about OLED panel deep blacks. No, this is a very good panel. I'd probably prefer to be using the Asus model on stream right now, but I've boxed it up. It's actually over my monitor wall over there. The Acer model is the most recent one that I've been testing. So this is a 27-inch 1440p OLED panel. The blacks do look very good. But yeah, it is a matte finish as well. So while it is black, it's not creating heaps of bright, like there is a lot of, this is quite a bright room at the moment. There's not a lot of reflections on it, even though it is matte. So looks quite good. Looks like Expo was a success. So memory's running at DDR5 6000 CL30. And now I've got my Windows USB here. We can start installing Windows. So let's give it a reboot and go try install Windows. So yeah, hardware. Steve is kind of right on the monitor name. Yeah, Acer X27U. It's one of the only Acer monitors that doesn't have the necessary crazy letters and numbers afterwards. But yeah, so yeah, pretty happy that it worked at first try. I'm not like crazy surprised. I tend to think when I plug all the things in, it's probably going to work. And I think on the inside, it looks pretty nice with all the RGB. It's obviously all black design, which looks quite nice. We can see the Corsair power supply that we're using down at the bottom there as well. Obviously the ROG Strix model has all this LED lighting on it, and then with the LCD screen that's just there, I will be putting like a Hardware Unboxed logo or something on that using the Armoury Crate software once it's finished. So yeah, that's going to be nice. We've got the MSI nice RGB logo there, G-Skill RGB, so there's lots of RGB, and on the front as well there's multiple different RGB strips. You'll see there's a little one here and here, but it goes all around the triangles on the front, all around, and then yeah, so yeah, it's, I think, considering the size of some of these components, there's obviously still a lot of space. So with this particular case, you can replace the RGB panel here with either more room for fans, so you can get fans coming in from the back through the front, so you can install additional cooling there. I believe there's also like pump mounts and cooler mounts and things that you can install instead of this. So yeah, that's pretty much what the sort of advantages of this case are. Obviously, I can feel a lot of airflow coming in through the top here as well, so that's quite nice. And even on the front here, even though it is angular and there is still quite a lot of mesh coming through here, there's no just flat panel there is mesh for these things coming in. So yeah, so at the moment it should be booting into the Windows 11 installer, provided that the USB that I made actually works, which I think it does work, fingers crossed. So yeah, here we go. Let's go in English. Oh, I can't change this to English Australia? You got to do that. English Australia. There we go. Install now. So, product key. I'll deal with that later. Sure, let's install home. So yeah, a couple of people asking if you've missed most of the stream and what's been happening so far. What is this PC? So this is my new gaming PC. So the reason why I've got needed a new gaming PC is that my old gaming PC I repurposed as a display testing PC. So I used to only have one display testing PC that used an AMD GPU, but now I've got a second PC that uses an NVIDIA GPU, and that's because what we found is that some of the newer monitors are coming out, not this one, but other monitors will only support, well, they'll support different HDR performance on AMD and NVIDIA GPU. So it's good to have two test systems ready to go to slap in some HDR testing. But with my gaming PC now uses a test system, new gaming PCs. That's exactly what this is, and hopefully this will fit under the desk, but we'll see about that. I'll just turn down the brightness on this so you can actually see what's going on. So that's a bit better, isn't it? Yep. So yeah, not going to be using dodgy CD keys or anything like that. It's all going to be standard normal stuff. So just going to use normal Windows. Booted the first time and works just fine. So yeah, what's going to happen from now is obviously this PC becomes my gaming PC. I'm going to add in the SSDs I was talking about earlier. My game PC is also used as sort of a game archive PC. So in there'll be all the games that I want to be testing with are all installed so that, yeah, I have easy access over 10 gig networking, things like that, to transfer it to test systems or just fire it up to see what the latest games are doing. So with this PC, I'll be slotting in my 12 or 16, can't remember, I think it's 16 terabytes of SSDs into this as well, which have all the games installed on it. Then with the MSI motherboard and 10 gig networking, hook it up to my 10 gig networking in my office, and then it'll be sort of ready to go, used for those dual use cases. And of course with the RTX 4090, the ASUS Strix model, it's going to be pretty powerful for sort of gaming and enjoying, you know, the limited amount of time off that we've got here at Hardware Unboxed. And yeah, maybe I'll put Steve's face looking like an idiot on the CPU cooler screen because of his trolling. So yeah, all the components, links are in the description below if you want to see exactly what's being used here. But the summary, let's get the summary of components back up and going. So AMD Ryzen 7 7800 X3D. We got the ASUS RTX 4090 Strix, as I just talked about, the MSI Meg X670E Ace motherboard, the ASUS Ryujin 3 360 ARGB liquid cooler, the ASUS ROG Hyperion case, that's this big boy that we're using here, Corsair RM1000E power supply, G-Skill 32GB DDR5 6000 CL30, Trident Z5 Neo RGB memory, and then the Sabrent Rocket 4 Plus G 2TB SSD without the cool SSD cooler because I couldn't figure out how to get it working and wasted about half an hour of time trying to do that. So not with that, but with the rest of the things, that is the build basically. So yeah, cool selection of components. As I said, I sort of chose all of these things, handpick the things that I want to use for this particular build. High-end overkill sort of thing. Obviously, this build costs $4,400 US to get all these components as spec'd here. I think if you used a less expensive motherboard, used not the flagship RTX 4090 model, not the best ASUS Strix model, and things like that, the price would come down quite a bit. You'd probably save $500, $600, $700 on a build like this just by changing those two components to things that are a bit lesser tier. Obviously the cooler as well, those sort of things can be improved. But yeah, the idea with, we're going with an AM5 build. So there's longevity in the platform, there's things like that, which means that we want to make sure that this build is going to last for CPU socket upgrades. So using a high quality liquid cooler, using a power supply, 1000 watts is going to last a long time. I think it's got a 7-year warranty or something like that. So having all that ability to extend into the future is all supported via this sort of platform. It's got all the room if I need to add in more things, like even down below here, even though this is a 3.5 slot GPU that uses up a lot of space, there's still an extra slot that's clearly accessible, that's not going to block the fans here. that can then be used for like a capture card or something like that in the future. Or, you know, previously that would have had to be used for a 10 gig networking card, because yeah, that's what I need for this sort of system. But because the motherboard's got 10 gig built-ins, it's all fine. So yeah, it's currently, let's click restart now, get the Windows install going, and yeah, I guess for a future build, the next level of overkill on top of this would be like custom liquid cooling or something like that, which is honestly something I've never attempted before. Even something like this is a few little things that you can see my, you know, not 100% up to speed with all the PC building techniques. Steve definitely does a lot more of that. So yeah, that's pretty much that. Once it boots into Windows, we'll pretty much have this one done and be wrapping up the stream. But if you have any other questions or things that you wanted to ask, now's the time, really. So yeah, ask some questions, get on with it. Oh, the monitor as well, not this monitor, but I will be using this with my Alienware AW3423DW, which I use for gaming at the moment. No change there. That's pretty much the only component that's going to be retained with this build, moving over to the gaming area over there. And so yeah, previously my gaming rig had a 12400F in it and a 3090, which isn't like the worst system or anything. 3090 is still very powerful, but it was like a DDR4 build, for example. It was on an Intel platform that didn't have heaps of longevity. So yeah, it's been going well. These lights in here quite warm. So yeah, it's been going okay. Tim, can you play Fortnite on stream tonight? I wouldn't be caught dead playing Fortnite. I will never play Fortnite. So no chance for that. No chance, Steve. Not happening. Show us your bad building skills on Fortnite. Yeah, maybe. So yeah, I tend to play like single player games, so things like Starfield that's coming out, Cyberpunk expansion, Baldur's Gate 3 I think is just about to launch. Those are the sorts of games that I'd be playing on a system like this, so certainly would be interested doing that. American watching here, how many giant spiders did you fight off during this stream? Luckily in here, no spiders. Outside, lots of spiders. Got to dodge them, weave around. You know, it's like the whole ground in Australia is like a sea, like a carpet, but it's all snakes and spiders. And so we need to wear like boots and stuff outside and really just like hop around, try and find the gaps in between all the snakes and spiders, which, you know, it's a little bit stressful sometimes. I have to go back into my house. I kind of have to walk outside of my studio and then dodge the snakes and spiders and things. And they're all trying to like bite you and like climb up your legs and stuff. But once I get inside, it's all fine. No spiders. It's all spider proof. So that's quite nice. Does it play Crysis? Probably. Occasional kangaroo. Yeah, don't see too many of those around here. You can see them sometimes, but outside of that tends to work all right. Okay, so we're into the Windows installer. Wrong mouse. So again, OLED viewing angle, so good. No second keyboard. Oh no, hang on. Skip. Connect me to a network. Oh, do I have to do this with Windows 11? If I have to, I know you can go in and run a special command to get past this screen, but let's be honest, I'm not going to do that right now. So that's as far as we're probably going to get with the system. It does work. It's pretty much not much more to say, really. I've still got a few things to put back on. So like, for example, the back of the case has this like extra plastic shroud that goes over the cable management. So on the back, this would slot in this way around. So this way, slot in, and sort of like just covers some of the extra cables on the back, because there is a glass panel on the rear as well, so you get glass on the front and rear. So yeah, that's pretty much how that will go with that. So I'll put that back in later, but for now, yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, I was disappointed that, again, if you have joined the stream, we've got this super shiny Sabrent SSD cooler mount that I just couldn't really get to work properly. I'm sure there's some way to get it working. I'll figure that out later. Obviously, I'm an idiot and can't figure that out, so we ended up going with the MSI shroud. But yeah, so someone says just press Shift F10. We'll give that a try. Shift F10. Oh yeah, now we can do the it's like there's a command that I forget. I've used it a few times. So yeah, or you can go into, and if you do have internet connected, you can not sign up with the Microsoft account by putting in like no@thankyou.com or something like that. Oh yeah, that's it. Someone in the chat's put it in. So oh, I did it the wrong way. Huh? There we go. So, good stuff. I'm happy it worked the first time. That's nice. Should probably take some water as well. I've been speaking on stream for like 3 hours now. No water. Bit tiring. So, yeah, we'll get some BTS shots of this for our Discord members and stuff to look at once all the case panels and stuff are put on the sides and things. I'll also be getting some B-roll just using video, so you'll be seeing a bit of this system used in other things like the full final thing, nice up close. You'll get some nice shots of what's going on there, and yeah, pretty keen to see what's going on. But luckily, you guys can't see the ground around here because there's a lot of stuff on the ground, a lot of cases and bits and bobs and things. So yeah, I'm currently playing through Diablo 4, so that's probably the first game I'll be playing on this system, which again doesn't really require an RTX 4090, but you know, still go with it. So yeah, I'll be hopefully doing that at some point. We'll see. I don't have internet. Nice. Limited setup. PC name. Steve sucks. There we go. What are your thoughts on the Yakuza games? Yeah, I've played a few of those. I played Like a Dragon, probably the most recent one. Really enjoy those games. Quite a lot of fun. Lots of interesting like side bits and pieces and things like that. So yeah, really enjoy the Yakuza games. I think I haven't played all of them. I think I've played Yakuza 0, a couple of the other ones, like the numbered ones, like maybe 6. Can't quite remember. I played a few of them, but Like a Dragon was nice. So soon we will be booting into Windows, and it should be working. And just for clarity, when I put in Steve Sucks, I did not mean GN Steve. That was clearly Steve from Hardware Unboxed, but I can update the PC name later, I guess. Tim, give me an American accent real quick. You don't... No. I'm not an accent person. My accents are horrible. So I would just embarrass myself, so... If you select Australia for the location, does it notify the large spiders you have a PC? Yeah, it probably should notify you about the spiders and the things that are around here. That would be nice. Hey, we're in Windows. So let's make sure everything's... So it says Ryzen 7 7800X3D, 32 gig of memory, 6000 speed is detected. We've got an SSD here. Obviously we need to install the NVIDIA drivers for the RTX 4090, otherwise that's why it hasn't appeared there yet, but it's all working. It's all nice. So yeah, I probably could sit on this case, to be fair. It's got also 2 very strong, sturdy carrying handles on either side, here and here. The actual fan thing is like inset a little bit, so very strong, sturdy carrying handle. About the design, I mean, again, this is the only component of the build that I didn't really choose myself because I don't really care too much about the case of my PC. And I think, apart from trying to figure out exactly how to get the PSU shroud off so you can get the PSU in, it's got a lot of room in it. A lot of room, heaps of room for cable management around the back. There's really not going to be any issues there. There's even there's plenty of room for mounting SSDs and things. You can replace the thing there with SSD mounts, like 2.5 inch drive SSD mounts. There's a few on the back. There's a few slots for other drives and things. So yeah, that's pretty much exactly the thoughts on the case. Looks fine. All fine. So we will eventually sync up the lights, make it everything look nice and things like that. We'll get all the software working, and yeah. Although maybe I'll leave it on rainbow mode. I don't mind the rainbow mode. Tend to leave that to myself. Should Tim 1v1 Steven in first person shooter on Gaming Unboxed Live? If it's not Fortnite, maybe. Don't know which game it would be though. Something else. I wonder if I don't think I'd beat Steve in a 1v1. I'm pretty sure I wouldn't. I wonder if I'd beat Balin. I don't know. I'm not like super good at first person shooters, but I think I could hold my own alright, so we'll see. Rocket League. I'll 1v1 Steve in something like Clone Hero. Get on the Clone Hero, Steve. I'll 1v1 you in Clone Hero. So yeah, probably be wrapping up the stream shortly. Not much else more to say. Probably people want these fans turned off. The microphone's like just almost that far away from the fans, so we'll be able to turn those down a little bit or turn off or something. But yeah, I reckon there's probably only like a couple of games I could beat Steve in pretty comfortably. Clone Hero, maybe GeoGuessr is probably another one that I reckon. Like, I'm not good at GeoGuessr. There's no way. Like, I'm not good at all. But I reckon I'd be better than Steve at that. Probably not too many other things though. Love hardware unboxed reviews. No punches pulled. Yeah, thanks for the super chat there. Appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of fun here. So yeah, enjoyed the build. Apart from Steve saying that I was building it too slowly, but few things to be concerned about, a few idiot things going on there with me. So yeah, back to monitor testing after this. Still got quite a lot of monitors to be getting through, some 27-inch stuff. There's actually a monitor that I've been using for this stream that's just over there that you guys can't see, that isn't released yet, and I've been testing, but it's just over there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Tim versus Rainbolt. Rainbolt would embarrass the crap out of me. He would mop the floor. I don't think I'd get any countries right, to be honest. Like, I'd get in the ballpark, but yeah, no. Yeah, not too much else happening there. Yeah, coming up on the channel soon, you will see some of Steve's upcoming testing for some of the components that he's bought, like the Ryzen 5 5600X 3D, imported that from the US. We've also got the Radeon RX 7900 GRE. Steve had to buy an entire pre-built system to get that GPU, but we will be reviewing that standalone on the channel. Lots of interesting things to talk about there, with AMD not really sampling them, board partners potentially being restricted or prevented from sampling them. So we'll be looking at that on the channel. Around the launch of Starfield, optimization guides will be coming back. I'm sure Steve will be benchmarking the crap out of that game across GPUs and CPUs, so there'll be plenty of testing there as well. And of course, there's lots of monitors unboxed content coming up, like we've got a four-way battle between these 27-inch OLED monitors. We've got all 14 OLED monitors I've reviewed ranked. There's a Q&A session, more reviews, lots of good things happening on monitors unboxed. And yeah. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thanks to all the companies that did support us in terms of providing hardware. So AMD, Asus, MSI, Corsair, G-Skill, Sabrent, for all their support. It is nice to be able to choose components but still get them sent over and for things like this. It can be difficult sometimes. Managed to pull it off, so that was nice. Always appreciate that. Appreciate everyone that's watched this throughout the entirety of the stream to the end. It's been going for just under 3 hours now, so yeah, really appreciate all the people that support Hardware Unboxed and all the testing that we do, whether that's just by subscribing to the channel, watching our videos, or by Patreon and Floatplane, things like that. Good time to sign up to Floatplane or Patreon, because by the end of this month you will get our monthly live streams and things like that, which are very chill. We like having a bit of fun there. So yeah, appreciate everyone and all the people who submitted super chats as well. Always appreciate that stuff. So that's pretty much it. It's like 2:00 p.m. here in Australia. I haven't had lunch, so a little bit hungry. Get onto that, smash some stuff, dodge those spiders and snakes outside, and have some fun. So thanks everyone for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Except I also have to close the stream. So it's done. Maybe.